This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another random review. Today's random review is a Russian-Finnish co-production from 1959. It's another deaf crocodile film. It's Sampo, or The Day the Earth Froze, by Aleksandr Ptushko. This is the second Ptushko that I've done a random review. The Tale of Tsar Saltan is the other one, and there is a third deaf crocodile title, one of the relatively newer ones, The Sword and the Dragon, which I will hopefully be picking up. This is Deaf Crocodile number 5, and as with the Tale of Tsar Saltan, the goodies are on the front of the slipcover and the baddies are on the back. You'd never tell that they were baddies, would you? And again, you get different artwork on the front of the Blu-ray, and inside, if you take the disc and the booklet out, you just get the slipcover essentially. And this is a really thick and visually arresting booklet, as it's a visually arresting film. Again, I'm not going to go into all of the imagery and all of the bits that made me agog, and sometimes I was aghast as well. This is just another absolute stunner. It's based on some Finnish folklore, hence the co-production by Ptushko, who was kind of known as the Russian Disney. It's funny, I think I mentioned in the Tale of Tsar Saltan random review that the film has lots of Bava lighting, but technically Sampo was 1959 and Bava didn't do a colour film until 62, 63 with a bit in Black Sabbath. So maybe Bava is actually using Ptushko lighting. If you're used to the colour palette of Sergei Bondarchuk's insane masterpiece that I think are ranked as the greatest film of all time, from 1965. Obviously Sampo predates that as well, and I'm sure Bondarchuk, being a fellow Russian, probably saw the films of Aleksandr Ptushko and incorporated that dazzling colour palette in War and Peace especially. So it's a simple tale, as you would expect with fairy tales. It's the simple tale of this witch who lives in the Northlands. You've got this kind of peaceful group of people. There's a blacksmith, his daughter, who's betrothed to the other character on the cover. I'm not going to try and pronounce his name. And the witch wants to create the Sampo, which is a rock that needs a nice coloured lid to be crafted for it, and it basically pours out salt and flour and money. It's basically a chicken that lays the golden eggs, essentially, or even a goose that lays the golden eggs, but in stone form. And her wizards, who are just grubby little men, just can't get it to work. So they want to use or get the blacksmith from the plains, the lovely green, where bears roll around, and swans, and because the film is also about the relationship between human beings and nature. Again, I'm not going to get into the minutiae because there's so many moments that you just have to see. But there's definitely a theme, a strong link between humans and nature that, every country's folklore has, the earth being, a living thing, rocks and trees have power, which again over the generations and millennia we've lost that to the stage that we don't really give a shit about the earth. Whereas obviously in olden days of folklore, the earth and animals and trees and rocks were much more revered, and they all had their own voice and their own power. So they craft a plan, the witch using her evil cloak kidnaps the sister of the blacksmith, and takes her to the Northlands. Again, as I've discovered with my journey through Italian films, the north-south divide, there's also a north-south divide in Finland as well. So, obviously, the hero goes to the island, is given some tasks. Again, I'm not going to go into details because that would spoil things. To perform, to get the girl back, and then to blackmail them. So the blacksmith will actually craft the Sampo for the witch and the wizards. It is off-putting because the first time you see the witch, you do think it's a man, but it is actually a witch. It is actually a woman, apparently. And there's lots of journeys backwards and forwards to the island in one form or another by various people, to kind of take revenge and steal back and give back. And again, I'm not going to go into all the details and all that happens because again, that would be spoiling it. This film just looks absolutely gorgeous. You can see by the thumbnails that I've attached. Visually, it is just another stunner, like the tale of Tsar Sultan. It's another absolute gem. It's got great music. There's a couple of wonderful songs. The final battle is just incredible because it doesn't play out the way you would think. It is just another absolute stunner. By Deaf Crocodile. Again, if you are into fantasy films and fairy tale based films and folklore based films, but the use of mat work, the use of sets, there's some amazing sets, but there's also beautiful locations. Obviously in the countryside, it's just beautiful, and again some top class bear action. There's also snakes and swans and horses and it's just an absolute beautiful film. And again, if you watch this and the tale of Tsar Sultan, and hopefully I'll get to see Sword and the Dragon by Ptushko as well, it's like, why aren't all films made like this? Once again, Deaf Crocodile done a really good job. Again, the booklet is really thick. So this is a 4K restoration from the original 35mm CinemaScope. And this was done by CAVI, the Finnish National Audiovisual Institute, with additional digital restoration by Craig Rogers of Deaf Crocodile. There's a commentary by comic artist Stephen Bissett, who did Swamp Thing. There's a reprint of part 2 of film scholar Alan Upchurch's pioneering essay on Aleksandr Ptushko from Video Watchdog magazine from 1992. And there's a new hour-long interview with Mike Nelson, head writer and host of Mystery Science Theatre 3000, talking about Ptushko and also the Sword and the Dragon. I haven't watched. As soon as they start mentioning Sword and the Dragon, I stopped watching. It's hosted by comic artist Bob Fingerman and Dennis Bartok of Deaf Crocodile, who, if you saw my random review of Assassin of the Tsar, he has a wonderful interview, an hour-long interview with Malcolm McDowell. And there's the original Finnish language trailer, and again, new artwork, which is just stunning. So again, it's a Deaf Crocodile film that I can't really talk about the details of it, and I don't really want to do a spoiler bit because it literally would be It literally would be me saying, oh, then there's that bit that looks gorgeous, and then there's that bit that looks gorgeous, and then there's that amazing bit that looks gorgeous. In summation, it's gorgeous, but it's also just a wonderful story, obviously about wanting greed, but not wanting to work for it. And again, it's got the underlying themes of the union, the partnership, the symbiotic relationship between human beings and the earth, which, as I've said before, we have desecrated quite badly, because when it comes down to it, mankind wants its own Sampo. And on that bombshell, I will say thank you very much for watching this random review of Sampo, or The Day the Earth Froze. Please let me know if you have seen it and what you think of it, and hopefully you'll join me again for more random reviews. And who knows, there might be some more deaf crocodiles, because they are the crocodiles that need our help the most. So thanks very much for watching. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell.